Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Your Dose, the podcast where we share stories of individuals to help people feel less alone and more connected. And in this episode we have Reynolds, who is discussing the importance of breathing, holistic health and the role of nature in well-being. He shares his academic journey and the intersection of science and economics in his pursuit of holistic medicine. Reynolds emphasises the need for a more natural and holistic approach to health, including nutrition and lifestyle. Reynolds discusses the importance of holistic health and shares his top 3 habits for achieving it. He shares his current projects, including freelance work, building a charity, and angel investing. In particular, Reynolds includes Ikigai health and nature retreats, which aim to help individuals find their purpose, improve their health, and live in harmony with nature. Thank you so much, for Reynolds, for coming on the podcast and sharing your wisdom around nature and holistic health. I do hope that the listeners can benefit from some of the advice and tips that you've given around how to really achieve this in our day-to-day lives. Hope you enjoy the episode, and please remember to leave a review if you do listen to this, and also remember to follow wherever you're listening so that you can keep up to date with all the most recent episodes.
I am just about to receive a gift from our lovely guest, Reynolds. Here it is.
So
over
here,
I love candles.
There's a candle and it's espresso. I thought you might like coffee. I don't know.
I love coffee. This is amazing.
It's really good. It's cool, right? Yeah.
Thank you so much. That's amazing. I literally love candles. Thank you.
Yeah, 100%. And I guess one reason why a candle too is the wavelength of light of a candle is about like 1,500 Kelvin. And that means that you can sleep easier. So it's like a warm wavelength of light. Yeah, so you release your melatonin naturally. So as opposed to like the screens and the top hanging artificial lights. Yeah, so like daylight is about 5,000 Kelvin. Yeah, a warm like kind of orange is like 2,700, and the candle's even warmer than that. Yeah, so there you go. So
amazing.
You put it on at night time.
I will put this on tonight.
I light candles before bed. It helps you get to sleep. So
amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you. Let's have a hug.
Enjoy.
Thank you. That's so lovely. You know what's amazing is the whole time I could just smell the candle. Yeah, it smells amazing.
It is.
Well, what a way to start a podcast. So, Reynolds, welcome to the Your Dose podcast.
Let's go, Your Dose.
I'm feeling amazing. I'm feeling ready to go.
Let's go. I'm feeling great as well. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for being here. One of the questions I always have to start with on the podcast is, tell me a little bit about you, what's your background, academically and professionally, and also wherever you come from.
Beautiful. Yeah. So I guess the background question, like who are you? Yeah, I guess I'll start maybe like a traditional like academic professional one first, and then we can dive into like the big story and that.
Yeah.
But it's always funny describing yourself to someone, because you can just say, oh, I work at this, I work at that, I'm this person. But I do. I've been very influenced by like Indigenous wisdom, especially here in Australia, on like what's your story, like who are you, like your roots, your parents, like these sort of things. So I think we can dive into it later, but yeah, I'll start with the academic professional one.
Yeah.
So I guess I've always been super curious, and I love science and learning. I also love the arts and creative, but I'd say I definitely had a period in my life where I focused on science more, and now I'm getting back to my right brain kind of artistic side. And so I studied my chemistry, physics in high school, maths specialists, all this stuff. Then I did literature, religion and life too. That was quite interesting, a bit of drama. And so I studied pre-med in uni. So I really wanted to become a doctor, and I still am on a longer kind of road to become a holistic doctor of humans and nature.
Yeah.
But my major was physiology in my undergrad, in the kind of biomedical science field, and then I also did commerce with economics. So I had kind of like a nice duality of science and economics, finance in my undergrad at UWA back in Perth.
Nice.
And so for me, that was amazing because as opposed to the pre-med kids who would just study the physiology and the neuroscience and the anatomy, which I still did and I love, I got to have this wonderful other side of the table where you get to learn about economics and about the financial flows of markets and behavioral science over there. And I really found the intersection with health economics. So I'm very passionate about how you can spend $1 and be able to get the maximum return on investment in society for that, with your healthcare and development.
Yeah. And one thing that you mentioned there was holistic health.
Yeah.
Can you explain what you mean by that?
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. So holistic, I also like to use the word systems. Yeah. So there's like two types of thinking. There's a beautiful book called The Systems View of Life. Maybe we can link it in the show notes. It's a big textbook, but I've even only read the introduction to 2 chapters. But the main message from that was that you have a reductionist or mechanistic way of looking at things, and then a holistic or a systemic view of things. And society shifts in its pendulum swing between these ways of viewing all things. The ancient Greeks were actually a culture which saw things in a very holistic or systems view, but yet were very scientific. And I feel like right now we're actually in a scientific paradigm. The book actually states it, and I agree, that's very reductionist or mechanistic, kind of Newtonian. And we are now swinging back into a paradigm which is more holistic. And what holistic means, at least to myself, is that the sum of the parts, that the whole is more than the sum of the parts. Yeah. And so when you think about the human body and brain, you can't just reduce it down to its subspecialties and atoms and neurons, because even if you go so deep into those things, you still won't get the full picture. You need to take a big step back, see the whole, and see how you relate to other things. So not just the body and mind, but how you relate to your outside world, to your family, to like the world, to the economy, to your social media, to your phone. Like this is more of a holistic view of health that goes beyond like the traditional view where you split the medical specialty in like 100 different subspecialties of endocrinology or cardiology or psychiatry. We're really seeing like health as in a systems way, like even kind of more of a public health or a global health perspective as well.
And how can you apply that into the world of medicine to help the individuals who are suffering with illness, for example?
Yeah, good point. So I guess, one really beautiful way I think that this can be applied is that you no longer think that the only way to heal yourself or to get medical treatment is from a doctor or from the current medical system. You can be able to receive healing from your family, from yourself, from nature, from the food you eat, from every other thing. So when you really have a holistic approach, it's how you move every day, how you sleep, like your lifestyle. And that is where the big switch in my head, I was like, wait, like health is not, this medical specialty where it's more about, sick care or disease, acute care in that sense. But it's really about how can you have the highest quality of life? How can you be happy? How can you be content? How can you live a life with vitality, and a life where when you die, you look back and just know that you lived a good life. And I think that it gets quite philosophical when you really think holistically, but that's how it should be in my mind, because we've taken up the philosophy and all the cultural roots and the beauty and the wonder and awe of medicine, and it's just very like mechanistic. You have this disease, we prescribe you this, we give you that. And I'm like, dude, like health is so beautiful. Like we are all one, and why not kind of see it more holistically?
So, for example, on the topic of, let's say, antidepressants, you would assume that that might not always be the best approach to go into a GP, explain that you're feeling low, and then for them to just prescribe you antidepressant. Do you think that there are other ways that we as humans can heal ourselves without medicine? And what would you say would be one of the best ways to heal, or to specifically, I guess, mental illness, but we can look at physical as well? Out of all of the things holistically, what do you think is the number one?
I guess even before I go into that, I would want to point out that your mental illness, physical illness, I I know that it's good to distinguish things as well, but I really see them like mind body as one.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so like no matter what mental illness you have, there's physical things you can do to help that, and no matter what physical illness you have, mental things you can do to help that.
Yeah.
So like, mind body is really like this connection, you know.
Yeah,
the brain is kind of like what the mind is one bit separated because it's so deep and big. Like neuroscience is its whole specialty. But yeah, like they're really just one. And so given how like one thing, and I think we've discussed this a bit before, but and this amazing podcast I listened to recently with Dr. Zach Bush really inspired me. But that's really that nature or living in harmony with nature and your own true nature is like the meta solution to all disease and all problems. So whether that be you reconnecting with your own true nature in the self, whether that be you reconnecting with the natural way humans have always existed, which is community, or whether that be you connecting back with like the larger natural world and going out to a national park and being in nature with the trees and the swans and the birds and the bugs, and just being there in and of itself will reduce your cortisol levels. There's great evidence to back that up. There's like clinical trials on they record cortisol levels for people in Japan and other areas too, but this is one study I can remember where their cortisol levels would drop after 15 minutes. And that's the stressful. Yeah, it's beautiful. So 15 minutes in nature and you're already less stressed. What happens when your cortisol level drops? Oh, wait, you might get better sleep that night. Hey, you might also feel less cravings for all the unhealthy food. You also will feel more content and happy and relaxed. And then you can make better decisions at work and with your family. And so you see how that one act of being in nature has a systemic effect in all other areas.
Yeah.
So, yeah, for me, like being either in nature or at least living a life that is natural to you and how we are always meant to be, that is, to me, like the best thing anyone can do. And that is a very individual thing. Like you should know what you need to do in the next like step, the next day, to live a more natural life. And you can't change everything at once, like take day by day. But for me, like to give a few little things is like light, living. Huberman, like Andrew Huberman, we all love him. He's been a big inspiration with his focus on the eyes and light. So for me, I wake up every day and, you know, I might be a bit naughty sometimes and, you know, check my phone a little bit, but I try to say, hey, phone, I'll leave you in the corner. I'm going to go straight outside.
So what would you say is the optimal amount of time that you should avoid screens in a morning for the most benefits?
Yeah. So I guess like your day really starts as soon as you wake up. I love is it the Dalai Lama quote, I think, where he even says like every new day is kind of like a new life. So you're kind of like reborn like from this unconscious to this conscious state. And I really love that because it's like you can renew yourself every day. So I'd say just your mindset in the morning straight away is really important. So just to wake up and be like, okay, I've got a new beautiful day that could be one with purpose, you know, with life. And then to go straight and do your routine without getting sucked into like the dopamine addicting machine of the phone, let's say. In terms of an exact time, it's going to differ for everyone, but I did read recently that the average Australian spends 5.5 hours per day on the phone.
Wow.
Which is huge.
And in the morning in particular, do you think that there's a specific amount of time that you should maybe avoid it? Like, you know, is it like 30 minutes or
actually, I think even like 20, 30 minutes so that you can walk outside, see the sun, and even if it's cloudy, looking towards the sun is still going to help a lot with you now releasing you have these clock and B-mal genes, which are now upregulated as soon as you see the sun. So your circadian rhythm starts.
Yeah, I've heard this. Yeah.
And so once that happens, you get this nice cascade of cortisol and adrenaline and pretty much all the hormones which make you feel awake.
Yeah.
So now you're awake, you can go do your things without the need for just a coffee. So if you just go on your phone in the morning, your dopamine's getting sucked up by this, and then I'm very tired, okay, I'll have a coffee. Why not just like, instead of having that as your routine, go outside, see the sun. For me, I walk to this the near nature bit. It's called Dr. Mary Booth Lookout, which is a wonderful public good in nature. And there's 2 park benches.
Is this in Sydney?
In Sydney, yes. It's near where I live. Very close.
Need to go.
Yeah, and so I go to there and there's a wonderful view of like the harbour and like the water and trees. And I go there, sunny or even if cloudy, it's okay. And I'll have my morning routine and I'll do like some kind of like yoga kind of poses and stretching.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll do handstands, and it's a bit silly, but I just do handstands by myself. And it wakes me up. I have a bit of fun with it. I'm also working on my handstands and the calisthenic stuff. And then occasionally as well, if I have the time, I'll meditate, even if it's only for like 1 or 2 minutes. Like I'll just sit there and breathe, just to get the habit kind of started. Atomic Habits, James Clear, great inspiration there. Or I'll do a 10-minute meditation or so, keep it simple. And then that's my morning 20-minute routine. Then I'll walk back to the house. Then I'll make sure I hydrate with water, some electrolytes sometimes too, maybe a green tea. And I usually fast in the morning, so I'll have I'll do that. If you want to have a coffee, sure, but I know that a human, a few others recommend to wait at least half an hour or an hour after waking up before your first coffee or something.
What's the science behind that? Why do you think you should be avoiding coffee?
Yeah, well, for me, I actually don't think you should be having any one thing every single day, because you're going to develop tolerance to it. So for me, I like to space out my coffee throughout the week, maybe have 2 to 3 coffees per week on average. And I'll do that when I really want that extra bit of, so coffee increases dopamine, it increases motivation and focus. And I kind of have a little, maybe if I really need to do some deep work, and I'll have that then. But the reason why you don't want to have it straight away is because you have actually your body's natural hormones, which can wake you up really amazingly. And so when you rely on an exogenous substance like caffeine to do that, then you're actually kind of downplaying your body's internal natural ability to be able to do that. So yeah, I'd say it's just good for everyone to see how they can optimize their routine without any exogenous force, endogenously, and then they can put in the other stuff where it suits them best.
Interesting. And you spoke a lot about this really, really healthy lifestyle that you lead. And so I'm intrigued whether this has been a lifestyle you've always adopted.
Yeah, good point. Yeah. So I'd say I've definitely been mildly obsessed about it in a good way. So I give myself always leeway to have a bit of, junk food there, to have a late night, all these things. And still, if I'm honest, sleep is still the number one thing that I need to work on for my health. But I didn't always be like this, definitely. And it was only really in the last 3 to 4 years that I started taking it seriously. And then now it's my Ikigai, it's my purpose to live a healthy life myself, so I then can help others. So for me, taking care of my body, my mind, my spirit, that's part of my purpose every day, just to be healthy, just to be happy. And so, yeah, that's it. So I guess the question was when did I start?
Was there a trigger for this sort of life change and focus around health?
Yeah, I think one big thing out of all the I've always been listening to podcasts in the last 5-6 years, especially accumulating little bits of knowledge here and there and starting to change my habits and reading a lot. But probably the biggest thing that I realized that was bad about our economy and our healthcare system was nutrition. And that's because I worked as a cardiac physiologist for about a year just after my undergrad, where I got to work with cardiologists, doctors for the heart, and I get to see the patients. So my role was doing your ECG, your blood pressure, having a chat, getting your medications, seeing where you were. And I kind of interviewed these patients every time I saw them. I just had a good yarn. And I realized that their cholesterol was high and their blood pressure was high, and they had a beta blocker and a statin to reduce those. But the underlying cause of their heart disease was probably mostly nutrition, movement, stress, and then sleep. But let's just say that out of nutrition was probably the biggest driver in my mind of most of these patients.
Yeah.
And the doctors would almost never mention it. I was in awe. They would have very terrible diets, let's say on average, and not to say anything bad about them. I think it's the health and food environment that they're in. So I don't blame the individual all the time. I usually think that the place and the culture of Australia, processed food is so easy to be there. I think the US is even more so. And that's why when I went to America, I was even more shocked. So let's just say that in Australia, having chicken nuggets and some chips satisfies a dinner. And I was like, dude, and tomato sauce. And I'm like, the macro and micronutrient content of that meal is just not there. And that is and that was a big thing for me when I was working in that environment. And I was realizing that we would have these, amazing pharmacology, pharmaceutical drugs like statins develop. And statins have saved many lives. And I'm not, giving him a bad day.
But it's about the fact that we're ignoring something, which is, So when you talk about nutrition, would you say that there are any foods in particular which we can eat for optimal health?
Interesting. Yeah. So one of the best things I've ever learned in nutrition is just eat colorful.
Yeah.
Very simple.
Yeah.
Eat
No
foods.
less beige, more colour.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So anything processed and just whole foods. Really, it's actually really simple.
Yeah.
Like you just need to eat foods that are actually found in nature and not like made in these big biotech reactors where they add processed cane sugar and seed oils and things. Just eat foods that actually come out of the ground from good farms. And if you can grow your food or be as close to that supply chain as possible, that has many other benefits too. And I can deep dive into that a bit more later. But let's just say there was this one book I read, and I fully finished it. It's actually pretty hard for me to finish a full book. I usually jump between books.
And why is that?
So why did I finish this book? Well,
why? How come you jump between books?
Yeah, I think this wonderful man, his name's Naval Ravikant, so I hope to meet him one day. Been a good inspiration to me. He recommended, he says, like, read what you love until you love to read. And then also that his philosophy of reading is like, if you can get the main point or understand something from a book, you're not obliged to finish it. As long as you just keep reading and keep learning, that's more important than you just, I'm not going to finish this, I'm bored now, and I'm really trying to just let that book go, read something else that interests you. It's more about the habit of reading.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah, so
we force ourselves to read books a lot of the time that we don't really enjoy.
Yeah. So just keep, like, for me, like every time I read one paragraph, I want to be super present reading that, because I really want to make sure my information diet or my sensory health is great, because I feel like that's like upstream of all other health, is like what you actually put in your eyes, ears, nose, mouth, touch. And so given that fact, when I read, a page of this book over here, Practicing the Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, like, I want to remember that and I want to actually apply it. So I don't just read for theory, I read for practice. And that's a super big difference. A lot of people just read and that would just go in one ear or go in one eye and out the other. But for me, I want to read that and I really want to learn it because I want to apply it in my life to myself and then help others. So that's kind of, for me, when I read, I really do it as like a bit of a, like, even a meditative practice, but also like I'm reading for a reason. Yeah, I'm not just reading.
What do you think is one of the best lessons that you've learned from a book?
Yeah, what's the best lessons from? Well, to be honest, like, maybe there's a few books that have centralized on this truth. That, like, probably the one I've got these two sentences or two mantras, whatever you want to call them, that I've been really like saying over to myself and to others, and they are: be present and seek adventure. And so, like, to be present is really like the answer to everything.
Yeah.
Like, if you can be present and just truly be here, it also means like you're listening to yourself, listening to others. You are aware, like you have awareness of yourself and others. So if you're doing anything wrong, you'll be aware of that when you're present. Being present is like you're not worried about past trauma or past experiences that have tainted your identity. By being present, you detach yourself from every bad thing that's happened. You forgive all of that, and you can just be here now. And also, you're not worried about the future, where you've got so many anxieties about how the world's going to go. Are we going to die tomorrow? Is my mum going to be okay? Is my dog going to be okay? Like, there's so many.
My brain.
Honestly, yeah, and my brain too. Like, to be honest, I'll be honest. The reason why I come back to being present is because my brain has worked like overdrive, telling me all these silly things about anxious thoughts, and so by almost like through all my suffering of my mind and the silliness, that kind of the continual noise and the self-chatter, like the programming of our evolutionary brains, forced me in some sense to seek like practices like meditation, like running. For me, when I run, a lot of the time I do it more for mental than physical health. It's really to get out of my mind and I can just be there running. And running in nature, trail running has been one of the best things I've ever done.
Yeah,
I was in Europe a few months ago with my lovely partner Joe, and like that was some of the most euphoric and blissful experiences, and also completely sober, just running. So
I was that's. I guess that blends quite nicely onto the next question around alcohol. So I am the most sober curious I've ever been in my entire life. Currently not drinking alcohol.
Congrats.
And I've had / probably do have an unhealthy relationship with alcohol, to be fully transparent. And I do feel like it's something that I need to take out of my life. completely to become the person I want to be. I think it massively hinders who I want to be as a person. So what is your views around alcohol?
Well, my views around alcohol. Interesting. To be honest, these aren't necessarily my views. They're really just like observation of other people's views, literature, like a few other sources. So I like to be super like take myself out of it because I know I can have a biased perspective. But what I've observed, and this has been like in my own family, because my family's dealt with a lot of alcoholism, trauma there, and we can dive into that later. But overall, what I see in alcohol in today's society, especially the West. So when I say the West, it's like Western Europe, US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, like these type of countries. But I'd say the West, since the global like hegemony has kind of been dominated by the West, alcohol as the West's main drug of choice, and caffeine, if I'm honest, caffeine, alcohol, two big ones, has been exported to even the East and many other cultures which didn't exist to have alcohol integrated in their culture. An example maybe in Australia is the alcoholism in our Indigenous population is extremely high, and it causes so much suffering. If you're going to dig into it, like I'd encourage you in some way. But if you spend time in communities in the bush, in the outback in Australia, you will know that diabetes, so an addiction to food, and an addiction to alcohol, and probably smoking as well, like nicotine, like the three biggest like killers. Gambling too. I'm going to add a fourth one. Yeah, so food, alcohol, nicotine, gambling. Like caffeine is much less harmful, let's say, but there can also be addiction to be honest. But I'd say these four are like huge, and I've witnessed like people who are fully addicted to X. I used to work at the car park at the casino in Perth, and I used to see the same people come every day, and they would drive a pretty bad car, but they'd be like a black platinum member. So they're spending tens of thousands of dollars gambling, but their car's worth like $4,000. And I was like, I really couldn't believe it that this was just being perpetuated. And then guess what else is at the casino? Well, alcohol. They come together.
Well, it's one addiction to another almost.
It really is, yeah. And then the smoking room. So we're pretty much what I think about alcohol and all addiction is that we have created an environment in society in the modern day, especially in the West, where it's so easy to be addicted. We give everything to, like, if you were to just think first principles, when I walk down the street, I've got a tobacco store, and then I've got an alcohol store, I can buy stuff. I can buy these things easier than I can go find a local, like, sauna or an ice bath. I can find a local bit of nature where I can meditate in and be me. Like we pretty much have set up society, especially urban environments, to revolve around
drugs,
and these silly things. And we say, oh, why are we so unhealthy? And I go, well, because your bloody city is littered with these things, and no one's doing almost anything about it. Unhealthy food too is just littered among all stores. You know the Easy Marts and the little convenience stores. For me, I'm a bit wacky about this, but I go in and I sometimes take photos and video of these stores because I want to document the health environment of this era. Because I do believe that Easy Mart or the Coles or Woolies or any grocery store is a health company. They are serving either medicine or you could say poison to the population. And the fact that they keep serving this processed food at your fingertips so conveniently, it's so convenient to be unhealthy. But we need to make health a convenience. And that's why the Blue Zones and what the Blue Zones project does, and you can look into that too, it's beautiful. And I've had a lovely chat to the CEO, Ben, with my colleague, Stephen. The Blue Zones, by the way, just to tell everyone who doesn't understand, the Blue Zones are 5 places around the world which demographers have observed have the highest life expectancy and also happiness. Like these populations are very content and they live great lives. They have, and the 5 are Okinawa, Japan, Ikaria, Greece. You have these towns in Sardinia, Italy. You have Loma Linda in California, so that's like the only one in the West actually. And then you have the Nicoya Peninsula in Costa Rica. Yeah,
I watched the Netflix documentary on this. And it was really interesting. And there was a massive focus a lot of the time on nutrition, positive thinking, movement, all those sorts of things. But But carry on about this
Yeah,
project.
so pretty much the long story short though, what I realized when observing the blue zones and reading the book and all these things, and I'd recommend you dive a bit into it. The Ikigai book as well talks a bit about the Okinawa blue zone. And so for them, they are so healthy and so happy. Why? It's because it's ingrained in their lifestyle and culture. And because they actually have no other choice to be healthy. Like in some sense, they don't have processed food at their fingertips. They have to earn every meal. They have to walk up the mountain. They have to like live in harmony with nature. And so for me, I was like, oh, you have to make health the most convenient thing for a population to be healthy. And I actually think about this in evolutionary biology terms or even ecology terms, where if I were to say, let's say we have a population of birds and I'm putting little bits of like processed food in the bird environment, just scattered here and there, are the birds going to be unhealthy? Yes. So they're going to eat what's around. Humans are really no different. Like I think we put ourselves on a pedestal, and I think we are a very beautiful creature, and Homo sapiens, wise human, like we are a phenomenal phenomenal product of evolution. Yeah, and I love humans. It's my favorite animal, right? It's humans. But what I've observed is that we like put all these unhealthy things in our environments, and then we expect us to be healthy. It's like no, like you put all the unhealthy things in the environment, you get unhealth. And a quote that comes to mind that my lovely partner Joe recommended me to say is, "Our environment is stronger than our will." So you really need to really see like what is your environment, what is your health environment, and that includes your family, that includes your friends. Another quote is, "You are the product of the 5 people you spend most time with."
So true.
Yeah, and not just in like health, but in happiness, in wealth, in mindset, in your habits, because it really is very practical. Because when, let's say, one of your friends wants to eat food, and I've got friends who are beautiful, but I now don't see as much. Actually, kind of luckily, because I moved to Sydney, so I can recreate all my friends, and that's been huge for me in self-development. But like friends say, "Oh, you want to get some chicken wings at our local bar?" And like back in the day, yeah, I didn't have all this health stuff then. You need, oh, yeah, let's go get a burger, some chips, get a beer. I'd always be like saying yes to this stuff. And then I realized like, oh wow, like what if I don't want to eat this? Like, do I say no? Do I not hang out with them? How do I deal with this?
Yeah.
And I think that's a big problem people face when they want to be healthy, because they probably either have to get rid of some friends or help influence those friends too.
Or deal with the fact that you are going to be different and it's going to be uncomfortable. So like, for example, this weekend I'm going to a bottomless brunch.
Nice.
And it will be my first ever bottomless brunch where I'm not drinking.
Wow.
And
how much are you paying, by the way, may I ask?
So I'm paying, it's in Manly.
Yeah.
For anybody listening in the UK, because I have a lot of UK followers, Manly is an area in Sydney.
Beautiful.
And it's amazing.
Manly is a blue zone.
And it is a beautiful place. But yeah, we're going to Tommy's Margarita. So it's all focused around Mexican and margaritas. Margaritas are my favourite cocktail. And it was, I think it's $90 for bottomless.
Yeah. Do they have like an alcoholic, non-alcoholic price, or is it the same?
So there is a non-alcoholic price. And going on to, which is like 65, but going on to that a little bit, and I guess this might help anybody listening who's going through this as well. But I spent the last week in my head about telling my friend that, to the point where I was like, do I make up, sorry if she's listening to this, do I make up that I'm actually unwell? Because I really don't want to be in this environment, but it's her birthday and she's my closest friend in Australia.
Yeah.
I've met her here, and what do I do? Do I tell her that I don't want to drink? She won't care. She might care, and she might think I'm boring. And I created this whole thing in my head. And this morning I was like, right, I'm cutting it fine. She needs to I need to tell them that I don't want alcohol there, because I don't want to be even given the temptation of a bottomless brunch of where I have to drink. And I sent her this long message this morning, I've been really anxious to send you this. I'm really sorry, but I want to come, but I also don't want to drink. I don't want it to be this huge fuss, but I really want to do this for me, because I was really struggling with after Christmas, and I do think that alcohol does affect me a lot more than I realise, and I feel like it's maybe not about removing it completely, but reassessing my relationship with alcohol is really important. And it's funny that you say that, because I was like, well, if I'm quitting alcohol, that means I have to lose all my friends, because I can't hang around with all these people because they're going to be drinking alcohol. But actually, I think you need to learn how to practice self-discipline and be around these people, and it be okay not to drink alcohol. And if those people no longer want you in your life because you don't want a burger and chips, or you don't want to go for a beer and you want to do something different, they're not your friends in the first place. And also, you can be in those environments, and you should be able to be in those environments and choose a salad, or choose a healthier option, or choose non-alcoholic beer without feeling like you're going to be judged. And I think that's one of the biggest issues with sobriety, is the questioning around, or not even sobriety, but just being sober curious and wanting to reduce. It's like, why are you not drinking? What, why are you not having a drink? Oh, have a drink. And it's like, it doesn't allow for people to at least try to reduce alcohol or try to be healthier. So
amazing. No, honestly, I think this is actually a pretty good analysis of the current culture. But the cool thing is that I think we've observed it is changing a bit.
Yeah,
and like
definitely.
The non-alcoholic beers have popped off in the last couple of years,
and they taste so good.
Yeah, and that's awesome. Like, I actually love all the companies there. For me, these need to be cheaper than alcohol, so there's another incentive to have alcoholic. Whereas some of the companies charge a markup for the health people, and I'm like, dude, like, you want to incentivize not having less. So I think that's one. Another one is like the health menus. So a lot of places that don't actually offer any healthy dishes at the restaurant, that really excludes those who really are trying to eat well. And so I think if we can have an effort that's quite organized to help restaurants be incentivized to change menus to offer more healthy options, and also ones that are vegetarian or vegan perhaps. But it's more important that they source even their meats and other things from more sustainable supply chains. Because right now, you'll go to most restaurants and let's say I just won't eat anything on the menu. Personally, I would rather fast, and I'm very happy fasting, But it really sucks when I go to a restaurant and a friend wants to eat there. But there's nothing that I would want for myself, and there's a tension. So for me, if you can have a society where at least you have the optionality of having healthy food always, and not just unhealthy food, that's beautiful, because then you at least have a choice. Because when you don't have a choice, it's terrible, right? And a good example is at airports, when sometimes you don't have any possibility of having healthy food. So for me, I've traveled around to places, and I just have to fast. And so I've gotten good at fasting now. But many people, it's tough to fast, and it's tough for me as well. I'm hungry.
Yeah. I can't fast.
yeah. But it's one of those things where I think in places, especially on the airplane, is another environment. There's no healthy food on the airplane. They just give you alcohol in a tray, and then you can buy consumer goods with a credit card. And I'm just dude, can I please get some fruit, even a banana? So that's a big one where, especially in health environments where there's no other choice, to really encourage companies and corporates to do their part for this next wave of healthcare.
100%.
And I see food as one of the biggest, most important industries for health. I think most people do as well, to be honest. And that, people think health is this thin slice of health insurer, health provider, hospitals, GPs, specialists, and then your consumer. And, even health economics, they tell you about this healthcare thing. But for me, healthcare, when you have a holistic view, a systems view, every industry, including agriculture, into urban planning and how we plan our cities and walkability and cyclability with bike paths, into how we plan our schools and the canteen food we serve, and how we educate our kids to be healthy as well. When corporate environments, when they give free alcohol, they're playing a big role in health. Do you have non-alcoholic options, or are you just? And if you don't have non-alcoholic options, do you make people feel I get free booze, or I get nothing? Okay, I'm going to go for the free booze.
Yeah, and it's almost discriminating against those people who want to make healthier life choices.
It is.
So it's I was speaking to my mum about this bottomless brunch, and I was she's like, well, surely they have a non-alcoholic option for people who don't want to drink.
Do they?
No.
Yeah, see, that's the thing I was going to say.
So they don't even have what they could do is offer non-alcoholic cocktails, or it's cheaper, or you could get it the same. So you feel like you're included. You feel like you're part of this community. You feel like you're part of the celebration without feeling because it will be just me who isn't drinking.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden,
by the way, I'm respecting the
Thank
self-control.
you.
No, honestly, that's authenticity.
Yeah, it needs to happen for me, and it will be the the biggest thing I've done so far.
Respect.
In terms of putting myself in a situation like that, especially with margaritas, because they are literally my favourite drink. So I'm intrigued to see if they will make me a non-alcoholic cocktail tomorrow. Actually,
True.
but yeah, they don't allow for it, and it's like and bottomless brunches are very much revolved around how can we get the most drunk as possible in the time that we have.
I know, yeah, that's actually such a good wow. Beautiful. So the one thing so we're kind of painting a bit of a bad picture of the world, let's say, and it's true. I think these are big problems we need to solve. But one like solution that I've come across in the last 2 weeks, actually. So I went to this wonderful festival called Lost Paradise, which is about an hour north of Sydney in the Central Coast area.
Wow,
it's beautiful land. Like honestly, it's like Jurassic Park vibes. Yeah, I'd encourage anyone listening to this to one day go to Sydney and go explore like the national parks above in the Central Coast. And so this festival called Lost Paradise, they obviously have bars there which serve like your Red Bull vodkas and everything too. Like, and for me, like I also had to reassess my relationship with alcohol. And even though I still drink every now and then, I haven't gone full cold turkey. I was considering doing it back in 2023, and I said to one of my best friends, Nick, I said, Nick, shall I go cold turkey this year? And he said, you know what, Reynolds, I think you have a healthy relationship with alcohol, and it's better to find that middle ground and be an example for that than go full cold turkey and just like say it's bad. And for me, I don't think alcohol is bad, and I think alcohol can be used with intention and ceremonially, and also to break bread and enhance social experience. And so that's why when alcohol is used in a great environment at the right dose, then it becomes like a bit of a medicine. But as soon as it goes above that, I think it's poison. And so everything has this medicinal and this poisonous dose. And you need to just really do what's right for you and that situation.
Yeah.
Taking a step back again, back to Lost Paradise Festival. I was so happy with this. They had like the bars, right? And guess what they also had? They had a sacred cacao bar. And they served wonderful cacao, okay, which is also actually a medicine in Central and South America, thousands of years. And it actually also has heart opening, and it's slightly caffeinating as well, so it gets you like a bit more stimulating, but it really feels relaxed in the body. And so for me, I was like, I bought I think like 8 cacaos during the festival. And it was $7 for a latte cacao, and then $13 for like a milkshake cold one. So at night time I'll get the lattes, the warm one, and then like during the day.
And how will it make you feel?
Well, it just made me feel like alive. It made me feel great, and it made me feel that I was able to participate in like a nice kind of fancier drink without having to go for alcohol. So it was the fact that I had an option. So if a friend was getting a beer, I could have a cacao with his beer, and we could just cheers and feel good together. And I thought that was phenomenal. And the best thing about this cacao bar, the founder Jacob as well, pretty much their team is wonderful. Like shout out to Sacred Cacao. I actually bought some to take home as well. But they source their cacao from 350 indigenous families in Central and South America. I think it might be Peru, but I could be wrong. It was so wonderful that I knew what I was buying with my $7, my $13 was supporting the families. And they go direct to source. Nice. And it was made with love. Like they even had, actually there was 4 types. You get like love cacao, like the fire cacao, like earth cacao, and like something else, like vitality cacao or so, and like they had like spices with them. So it was like kind of a fancy drink. It was like a bit of mint, a bit of like rose, a bit of this and that. And so for me, I was getting a great user experience. I bring it back to like software startup stuff. I was still getting like a great in-person UX while having this cacao, and I was like, dude, this is amazing. And we just need more options. Like imagine in the city, Sacred Cacao Bar, like a non-alcoholic fancy bar where you can
I think that's becoming more of a thing. I know in the UK they're trialing it. There's a few in London, and I think maybe in other areas where they're trying these alcohol-free bars, or they're doing alcohol-free hours. So, for example, Friday it will be between like 7 till 8 p.m. It's alcohol-free only. And so it allows people to still enjoy a Friday night and still feel part of the drinking culture without drinking, which I think's such a great idea. And I wonder if that exists in Sydney. Maybe that's something
maybe something we could do.
I've had a few business ideas already.
Well, I guess this is also like, for me, the reason why this stuff isn't done is because there is an economic incentive for it not to happen.
Exactly, yeah.
And so for me, I think the externality, there is a positive externality in this happening, but the entity that captures this value is actually Medicare in Australia, so it's our government. and health insurers as well, because they have a reduction in healthcare costs that won't be realized for like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So you not drinking today or been drinking today is going to reduce your healthcare costs. Not tomorrow, because you won't pay any more tomorrow, but you will have to pay for like a liver transplant or something crazy in 40 years' time if your liver dies, or you will have diabetes because your liver health is related to diabetes. And like the whole body is this beautiful system that I've realized where everything's interconnected. And that's why food affects everything, sleep affects everything, stress affects everything. Like it's this wonderful system of the body and mind. And yeah, we just really need like options and people to like take the charge on an individual level, on like a business level, like a community level, and say, hey, we're going to do this a happy hour. You know, the happy hour is usually cheap drinks, but with this happy hour, we have non-alcoholic or XYZ, and that to be something that we do with our mission as opposed to having an economic reason to do it. Because technically, you know, you might sell less drinks in that hour or none at all. And that's okay if you're mission aligned, if you want to just create a beautiful space where everyone can be there, be inclusive, and you care about health. Or you can just be super economic driven in every single minute and just say, we want to maximize ourselves in every hour. Because, you know, I worked in management consulting before, and what I realized serving corporates, and with all due respect to our fellow corporates out there, just the economic machine is so strong that there's always going to be a force for reaching that KPI for sales, for reducing your cost of your supply chain for doing this. And pretty much what that happens, when you have that force that drives the entire machine, the humanity, and the well-being, and the love, the community, and the health, these things aren't prioritized.
Yeah, they're a backseat realistically,
they're real
aren't they?
backseat.
Always.
Yeah, and so we need to just put that in the front seat, and then we use the economic incentives of capitalism, you know, some of the beautiful principles of socialism, kind of just interweave these where it makes sense. Because I love productivity and efficiency and all the wonderful things that capitalism brings, but I also think that we must be way more cooperative. And right now, our capitalism is a competitive paradigm where I'm competing with you to get this next customer. We should be thinking, how can we all cooperate and serve our customers and serve the world and the planet, and do that in a way which does it justice? Because at the moment, we just have so many entities and so many people who don't think big, and they don't think about the really meaningful questions of life. They're just thinking about, how do I
make more money, be more successful?
Yeah. Also, I don't blame them too, because they're probably just trying to make more money for their own family, for their own, you know, kids. So I understand that, but we just need to say, how can I make money for myself and my family and my community, not at the cost of others? And that's where like the economics study I did in my undergrad, and I still think about economics every day, and I still do these things. I realized we just need an economy which has every single externality correct. So if there's positive externalities, we invest more there, and if there's negative externalities, we find a way to reduce consumption or production there. And we just, if you correct all externalities in all directions, you actually have the perfect economy, to be honest, with no market failure. But we just haven't got there yet. All I want to do in my Ikigai and my life's mission is help us get to that kind of like wonderful economy. And there is a book actually which I'd recommend the audience. Again, I only read like 2 chapters of the book, but I felt like I got the main message from it. It's called Wellbeing Economics. And pretty much, I read it when I was in Amsterdam, at a library in Amsterdam. It's beautiful. I forgot the author's name, but a lovely lady, she pretty much is saying we need to rethink how all our economic decisions and our models are, where we prioritize the well-being of humans, animals, so other creatures, and the planet at large in every decision. So pretty much the whole economy is now incorporating, like when I care for my auntie or my grandma, that's my time is going into some labor, and I can quantify that economic output as care. And that is part of this like economic model. Whereas in a normal day, like doing stuff like care, doing stuff like service and volunteering is not an economic thing. They think, oh, that's free. That's like not economic. No, that is. But
in serving others, we serve ourselves. Is true. Yeah.
Give and you shall receive.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful.
And going back to the nature aspect, if for the listeners, how can they incorporate nature into their daily routine or life to help better their health? what are some of the habits that they can take?
Okay. Yeah, I guess I'll do like top 3 habits.
Yeah, top 3 habits.
Top 3 habits, yeah. This is just off the top of my mind. I haven't thought too much about this. For one, you need a practice of solitude. Okay? Solitude, think mindful practice. Just practice where you can be yourself and be by yourself. Just think, reflect. Just like honor your own time. A lot of people are kind of scared of being by themselves in their own thoughts. For me, this is also a bit me as well, but I guess meditation helped there for me. So for me, like when I'm out in nature by myself, I actually have a great time. I'm there with my own thoughts. Journaling is a practice of solitude for me, where I can like get clarity of mind and thought. So pretty much like you can choose whatever practice you want, and journaling might work for some, meditation for others. Breath work is a great path of meditation in my mind, because it's easier to focus on the breath and to like not be sure of what to focus on. And so having a practice where you're just alone and you can be with yourself and you get to know yourself more, and you reflect, you think, how can I be better? How can I serve others more? Like just asking yourself these very simple but deep questions. Number one. So like everyone needs to have some sort of practice that's mindful in solitude. I stack this with nature. So I do my journaling a lot of the time with like a community setting, and I feel like that's natural to gather together, group therapy vibes. Or I do my journaling at the park bench I was talking about before with the view. Or when I'm in the national park, I'll bring my journal with me or my book, and I'll do some things. So, or I meditate in nature. Meditating in nature is best, just hands down. Wim Hof on a mountain as well. You've done Wim Hof breathwork. Wim Hof on a mountain, like hits the spot. So that's the first one. Number 2 is actually having a consistent like routine to go to nature. And I'd say do this with other people as well. It's easier to do it with others to hold you accountable. I've got a great friend, Adam, so shout out to Adam. He made a group chat last year called Trail Running in Nature. I mean, he added about 10 of his friends in there, and he said every Saturday morning, I'm going to go find some nature and run in it. Yeah, consistently. And the reason why he did it is because he realized if he does something on a Saturday morning, he probably has to go to sleep earlier on the Friday night, so he's not going to be out all night clubbing with other friends. So for him, it was actually a way of cutting off his Friday night.
That's actually really, really good, and I love that idea.
Yeah, and so he made this group chat, and I thought it was such an amazing idea. And we don't even go every week necessarily, and we still need to go. Probably we have gone for a little bit as well. But let's just say that the fact that this is a consistent, recurring thing in nature, and it was done with people or community, so good because it reduces friction. Because how I think about like habits is like habits is autopilot. What you do in your life, it's habitual. And so if you don't have something that's recurring and something that's easy for you and that you've done before and that requires a lot of thought, plan, you're probably not going to do it every day or every week or every month. So having something in place, like a mechanism, is super key. So yeah, so number 1 is like that practice of like mindful solitude, whatever you want to do there. Number 2 is like doing it with other friends.
That's given me an idea because I set up a group when I got here to Sydney, and there's like 100 girls in it now.
Nice.
This just snowballed. And I mentioned in there about doing a sunrise walk. Yeah. And it was one of those things that like everyone was kind of responding and saying yes, but there's so many people in the group that it's almost hard to figure out who actually wants to do it. And so it's just given me the idea to make a separate group inside that group for a morning sunrise walk. And I'm going to make this part of my weekly routine where we do a sunrise walk and that's so connecting with nature.
Really is, yeah. Actually seeing the sun transition for me is one of the most beautiful things because
I love it.
It actually forces you to be in the present moment because you know it's so like rare to see that like go down. So like for me, like I've observed like especially in Perth and WA and the West Coast, sunsets in the water every day.
And I can't wait to see that next week.
Actually, see Emily in Perth.
Yeah.
Like the whole like population at the beach just sits there in awe of the sunset. Like me too. I'm just like watching this.
I love the sunset.
Yeah, and for me, I'm like that's such a grounding practice that is in nature, and it helps everyone actually sleep better because when you see that orange wavelength light, it releases your natural melatonin in your body, you know, in the hours after. And so sunsets are like a banging, and the city, unfortunately, with all the buildings, you can't actually see the sunset.
Yeah, because a lot of my listeners, I guess, will be in the UK and in America maybe, so they don't at this time of year, especially. I know that
Northern Hemisphere.
Sunrises and sunsets aren't the best, but that isn't the only option, is it? Like you said, you can do a trail run in nature anywhere in the world, and you can even just schedule 30 minutes in the morning to get up and go for a walk before you're on your phone. That's your schedule time in nature.
Yeah, and I think like you got to be like there's obviously an ideal scenario with every habit and everything you want to do, but just find like your minimum viable like product version of whatever you need to do. So let's say like to see a sunset, you just need flat ground-ish. So maybe you can find a local park, and the sunset there will be at least not as obstructed, and that will be a great time where you can see the sunset. You know, like obviously the water's perfect because it goes right at the horizon, you know. But yeah, just find like somewhere where it's relatively like flat, or you can find a viewpoint as well, obviously, where you can see other things, and hopefully that's within 20-30 minutes of wherever you are, just to go see the sunset more often during the week. For me, like I get to see the sunset from that viewpoint, and I look out to the west and I get to see it, and I'm like, every time I sit there and meditate during that kind of sunset era, it makes my whole night go better, you know. Yeah, I don't get to see too many sunrises. I definitely am not an early bird. But when I get to see a sunrise, to me that's truly special.
And so number 1, number 2, and what's number 3?
Number 3, Number 3, in terms of practice for nature, is to listen more. Yeah. So like listening, what I mean by that is listen to your own body and listen to your own mind in a very like philosophical, deep way. Where like, so this is not necessarily like the other one's like going to nature to do something. This one here is more understanding that you are nature and that you are natural. So just to do things that are natural to you. So as a bit of a habit of practice, it's like, what's a good example? One of this is a great traditional Chinese medicine doctor. He once told me, he said, sometimes like people do this cosmic mudra meditation thing, where they go like right hand over left or left over right, and like some like, you know, monks were meditating like, okay, it has to be this way over here. For him, he said, just do what was natural to you. So if your hands go like this or hands go like this, that's okay. Just do what was natural to you. So just like if you are like feel like you have to push against yourself or some other thing to let something happen, it's probably not right. Just like sit back, reflect, just do what feels natural to you. So maybe like if you feel like napping or sleeping, just go for a nap.
I like that.
You know, just do it. Like if you have an activity that you're organizing and it's too hectic or chaotic, and you feel like you need to just calm down and rest, just you know, put it out there, do what's natural. Just kind of like live in harmony with your own nature. Yeah, so
let
kind
things
of like
flow. Yeah,
let things flow. Like,
we had this conversation. Yeah,
flow is a beautiful word. So just kind of like if you were to be like a river, and you got like a blockage, like sticks or something, just like let it go, let it flow. Just do it is easy and natural. Like you shouldn't. Life actually doesn't have to be that hard. And this is kind of a Taoist way of thinking about things, but it's like effortless action or effortless effort. It's called a Wu Wei. It's a beautiful principle. One of probably the most impactful things I've ever learned about and then applied. So it's easy to read the Tao Te Ching or listen to it, but to apply this principle of effortless action, where you're doing things, but it's like effortlessly. So you're not even trying. And I feel like that is what we all need to get to, is our own creative flow, where we are just like living in this earth without having to try. We're just being. Yeah. And so like that listening to yourself and listening to what's natural. Yeah, maybe it's just being. So if I were to give the 3 again, it's like solitude.
Yeah.
Like a nature group like habit. Yeah. And then 3 would be like being. Yeah. And being is like you're being natural. You're being in harmony with your own nature.
And in terms of flow, just briefly, while you've just mentioned that, because I don't know if some listeners might not know what that means. What do you think it means to be in flow?
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. One thing I'd recommend people flow. Well, there's a book by Chesley Mihai. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but there's a book on flow. I actually haven't fully read it. I've read a bit of it. But for me, flow is the state of being where you have like optimal performance of all your faculties, mind and body, and it's like effortless. Like and you know that you're supposed to be right here in the present. Yeah, being in flow is being in the present. Being in flow, when I think about the yin yang and the Tao, is at the balance of chaos and order. You're right at the center. Being in flow is when you like don't have any worries about the past or future, and you can just be in the now, and that you're also at your zone of proximal development. So you're pushing yourself, but not too much, not too little.
Just feels natural to just be doing whatever you're doing, and but enjoying what you're doing at the same time as well.
And it's more of focus on the process than the destination. It's another.
Yeah.
It's like the journey of flow is actually what flow is, and that's kind of what the Tao means in like the Tao Te Ching. It's like the way or the path. So instead of focusing on the destination, wherever that may be, you're focusing on like every present moment and how to get there. And so you can be in flow when picking up groceries. Picking up groceries. It's like you can be in flow at every moment technically. Most people get in flow when they're doing something creative, when they're like making music, when they're like, even when I'm on my laptop and I'm just doing tasks, like I can be in flow. Music helps me get in flow. So probably like a big one. Music is medicine. Like, and I really want this like term, even like music as medicine, to be like push forward, because
it really is though.
Because for me, like I've had my most healing experience with music, with other people, other humans, community, in nature, and music. And that's why I'm such a big fan of like raves in nature, because I know that sounds a bit funny, but these can be very wholesome. Like I actually hosted one for my birthday like 2 years ago with my mom, my family, nephews, and we had camping out for a night.
I love that.
And we just had like my mum and dad and stuff and a few other friends kind of prepared some food, and like a few of us camped out, and we just had the DJ decks, we had some art supplies, and we were just out there like in nature in the outback in Australia. I just had a wonderful afternoon. It didn't have to be alcoholic food rampage at all. It was just very pure and very blissful.
Wow, that sounds amazing.
So I reckon like just doing stuff like that is just phenomenal.
That should definitely be more of a thing. I know that there are maybe in Sydney there might be these sort of raves where it's not focused around alcohol, it's in nature. I'm sure you know.
There definitely are some. There's a few like festivals that probably embody that spirit. There's one called like Love Festival, for example. I haven't been to it yet, but friends have said great things where there's like kids there and everything. It's very wholesome, but people like dance, to both live music and amplified music. There's like a balance there. There's many actually these type of festivals, but the funny thing is that a lot of them are kind of like underground. And what I mean is like they don't post publicly about them. They're very like community kind of driven, and that's where most of them are non-profit as well. And that's the thing. Like they're not really for any commercial gain. They're just to create an experience
and the community
that is very therapeutic. That are very like connecting. And so I've been super blessed to be in touch with these sort of events and communities, and they've been extremely therapeutic for myself. Like I've had amazing memories, with my partner, with my best friends, dancing and just dancing away all the fear, dancing away all the worries and anxiety. Because dance is medicine, music is medicine. It's wonderful.
And just on that topic, and you don't have to answer this question if you don't want to, but obviously raves can be centered sometimes around drugs, and I know that these love raves can have like a psychedelic focus. Is this something that you've engaged with? And you don't have to answer that question, but what are your views on psychedelic drugs?
For one, I think even though the term drugs, I think is problematic, because drugs do have negative connotations to it as well. But maybe you can think about a drug as like a synthesized exogenous substance. And so then psychedelics would be, like, could still be drugs, let's say. I think Sam Harris has a great thing I'd recommend everyone listen to or read. It's called Drugs, the Meaning of Life. And it's actually from his book, Waking Up. But he's got an audio version. It's also on the Tim Ferriss show too, which is beautiful. And so a lot of my views started listening to that. That was probably my first introduction to psychedelics. My first really deep thinking about it. And that was back in 2016, in my first year of my undergrad. And since then, I really got curious about psychedelics. So for me, I want to break down the term for people. So psychedelic, psyche means mind, and delia means to manifest or to reveal. So if you
Never
really,
knew that.
oh, beautiful, yeah. So if you really just think about what psychedelic means, and the term is also loaded. Like I want to be mindful that the term drugs, the term psychedelics, has a lot of baggage. So what I'm trying to talk about is on a very first principle level of what it means to me. So psychedelic, I actually kind of like the term. So psyche, mind to reveal. And so these substances, psychedelics, traditionally are like psilocybin, that's from magic mushrooms, found in nature. LSD, lysergic acid diethylamide, that's synthesized by our good friend Alfred Hoffman in Switzerland. And that was during World War II, he synthesized that. Yeah, it's beautiful. And they call that the atomic bomb of love in the book Bicycle Day, where the bomb for Hiroshima and Nagasaki was developed within a month of LSD. And so the atomic bomb was dropped, probably the most destructive thing humans could ever create in terms of like death. And now humans also created the most possibly beautiful synthesized thing as well. Psilocybin and LSD are very similar. They're both in the same class of substances, and they both target the 5-HTP2A serotonin receptor. DMT is also a traditional psychedelic as well. And so pretty much with these like tryptamines, they elicit, if I were to break it down, psychedelics for me, when you have them, you kind of have a bit of a shortcut cheat code to being in a very present, mindful state where you are just content with existence itself. And serotonin is kind of a hormone of contentment. So dopamine is like motivation, I want to do more. When you have serotonin, you're like, I'm good, I'm happy, I'm good. So if you think about like psychedelics, they're increasing your serotonin. And you just feel like, I can just be me. I can just be here now. And so it's very intertwined with meditation and these practices of mindfulness, because you can be able to get to these psychedelic states through non-psychedelic drugs, through non-psychedelic means. And like just meditation is one, for me, like in dancing, in nature, these sort of things are quite psychedelic experiences where you reveal a lot about the mind and who you are, but not necessarily taking exogenous substances. And so for me, and mindful of our audience as well, everyone's on different journeys with their psychedelic use, or for those who haven't had them yet. I'd recommend like really just looking into the ancient wisdom and literature on psychedelics. So what I mean by that is looking into how, I guess, How to Change Your Mind. Michael Pollan is a great introductory kind of to this sort of world as well. So he's done journalistic
I've heard a lot about that book.
Yeah, but I also recommend looking into like how the Mexicans and ancient, indigenous people use mushrooms and psilocybin for healing, because this beautiful mentor of mine, she's a healer. Her name's Devi Chandra. She runs these wonderful retreats over in Portugal. And so one beautiful thing is that she taught me is that she actually doesn't like the word psychedelic, and that's because she just calls them ancient medicines or medicines, because their use is in her culture, which I've taken as mine as all in some regard, has been just for healing and medicinal use. So you can use psychedelics for anything. You can use it for creativity, you can use it for recreation, because it is very fun, all this amazing stuff. Your senses are enhanced.
Yeah.
But for her, mushrooms and psilocybin were put on this earth to help humans heal from our traumas. And that was their purpose. That whatever you believe in the creation story of the world, is that psilocybin was meant to target our receptors in our brain to help us reach states of consciousness, to reflect and look back and heal ourselves. And that's beautiful, like that kind of story. And I love it because it brings psychedelics to a very intentional lens, where psychedelics are no longer, like, in essence, like for me, like I personally would never use psychedelics just recreationally, at least now, because what I've realized is that they're so beautiful and precious that not using them with intention is not even doing them their justice. Yeah, and so that's why I really encourage people to be super intentional with their psychedelic use.
Yeah.
And to also make sure that they have the best set and setting. to prepare. And I believe that the more you prepare, the more you put into it, the more you get out of it. It's very
best
simple.
Experience.
Yeah. And so that's why, like, my first time I had ever taken psychedelics or these plant medicines was in 2020 during COVID, about like September, October, August time. And I had started learning about them and being pretty like into the literature, like hundreds of hours type stuff since 2016. So for me, 4 years of like really dedicated time understanding what these were, what dosage I could take. Like I was researching, the LSD, like 50 micrograms, 150 micrograms. Do I want to microdose? Do I want to have a quarter of a tab, a half a tab? All these different things.
Yeah.
The psilocybin, is it 1 gram, 2 grams? Heroic dose 5 grams. I would learn all this sort of stuff, understand my body weight, how like they affect different people, different brains. It is a very complex kind of thing. And so what I would kind of encourage people to do is just to learn more about them, listen to yourself, understand, are you taking these for the right reason? What's your real intention behind them? And for me, I think the truths that come out of use, let's say of psilocybin, of mushrooms in particular, is the barrier between the self, like the ego, and other people, and nature, that tree, that plant, that book, starts to dissolve. So you become one with the other person.
With everything, yeah.
And everything. And, that seems a bit wacky for those who haven't experienced a similar thought or feeling. But it actually kind of makes sense very logically. And the reason is because, like, you are the product of every single thing around you, including the people sitting next to you and how they interact with you, and that plant and the oxygen it's producing, and like the light and how it's helping you see. Like, you are everything, and you are just a vessel to observe all that experience of the world. And so after having intentional psychedelic use, my whole life has changed, because every single moment now, this truth of oneness, of a universal love, like a unity, pervades my existence, where like I'm super like grateful in every moment, and sometimes I fall into like bad moods, and we all get back into that, but recurringly I remind myself of the wisdom to like be here now, to like know that when I serve others and I help someone else, I'm just helping myself. When I help, that tree or that plant or the earth, I'm still just serving myself, because I am that, and that is me. Yes, I'm like a mirror.
So nice. Yeah. Like, you just explaining that whole thing is giving me like goosebumps. And I think one thing to mention is how you served me just being here. And for any of the listeners as well, Reynolds helped me set up this room. I'm still new to podcasting, still new to in-person podcasting. And he was here helping me set this whole thing up and created this whole experience today. And you do have a way of just making me feel like being around you is an experience, and I can't really put my finger on it, but it's really lovely. So I guess it's interesting to know that that's based on your experience, not solely, but psychedelics have given you that perspective on life. And I guess if anyone is curious, I think you've given some great advice on how to do it properly. So going back a little bit into your professional life, what is it exactly that you're working on at the moment, and how does this integrate into your views on holistic health?
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, it's super cool. Like, now I've integrated my professional life with my purpose. So, and I love the word Ikigai as well. So that's why Ikigai means like a reason for being, a reason for existing, really. So I guess my purpose, my professional life, I kind of segment it in 3 main things. So number 1, I do freelance work, and that's in, honestly, number 1, actually, I'm building. So I'm always building entrepreneurially. So for me, actually building a charity right now, and running retreats. Yeah. And so there's going to be a lot of things that I'll be building towards with others in the next X amount of decades.
Yeah.
But we're starting with retreats and just creating these experiences, because that's where I feel can make a huge impact. It's obviously not as scalable as a B2B SaaS product, but I know that is what I'm here for, is to help create those spaces for people to be able to do that really big, deep root cause healing And that not just to heal from the past, but also to empower you to like have a better future, like kind of like self-development or self-actualization as well. So that's like building. Number 2 is freelance work, and so I work in management consulting for a bit and at a wonderful digital healthcare startup, Perks Health. And so what I've learned in some of these roles is how to help other startups and corporates or boutique consultancies with their strategy. So really thinking like, what do you need to do in the future so that your like company or startup, whatever, can be aligned with your values and mission, but also specifically the industries I mostly serve is like healthcare, it's like longevity type related work and consulting and freelance work there, and then also in sustainability. So I've done a lot of energy transition work, working like solar and batteries and EVs and transport, agriculture too, and then maybe like the horizontal still technology. So I really like to see how we can use the latest technology to help these things flourish. And so my latest project at Freelance on was actually on AI. And so it was beautiful, just like really deep dive back into a good old best friend, artificial intelligence. Yeah. Which which is another conversation, another podcast. But yeah, AI is a big one right now. If I were to say one thing on AI, is the more wise and intelligent we are as humans, means that we'll produce much more wiser AIs. And so I like this term, ecological intelligence. So if we can bring in the ecological intelligence from the planet, from the Earth, from the universe, and we can be more ecologically intelligent as humans, then our AIs will also be much more intelligent. So that's from there. And then another 3 thing I'm doing is I do some angel investing. And so wonderful kind of, how do I call it, like a micro VC. It's kind of a syndicate, but we're actually all GPs. General partners, so we all invest our own money, but we put like very little amount because I honestly don't really have much money at the moment. So I'm really investing to be on a shared journey with the founder I'm investing with. And we invest in things that have positive externalities, mostly in health tech, wellness stuff as well. We also, one of our latest investments is the beautiful early work. So shout out to the early work team, DB, Jono, Rena, everyone there, Ryan. We love you so much, Early Work. It's an amazing startup because they're building the future of education. And so I pretty much am only putting my money that I'm very mission aligned with. So instead of investing in anything that I think is going to go up, I'm still like, I do believe in these. Are going to have high valuations to do well, but everything has to be mission aligned. Yeah. So that's the investing, the freelance, and the building. Yeah.
Amazing. So going to the retreats briefly, what exactly do these retreats entail?
Yeah, so the retreat name is called Ikigai Health and Nature Retreats.
Yeah.
And so if I were to break down you the 3 missions of our retreat, and it's a very holistic, broad retreat, and to be honest, what we're trying to build is actually the infrastructure layer for all retreats, not necessarily all retreats, but like aligned retreats and other experiences and workshops and events. And so you can split it up into Ikigai, Health, and Nature. So the number 1 mission is to, we love 3s here. The number 1 mission is to help you find and pursue your Ikigai, your purpose.
Yeah.
So it's all about philosophy, self-development, self-actualization in that bucket, education, all in there. And there's a lot in there, right? There's so many workshops and retreats in there. Number 2 is health. And the reason why it's number 1 is because I found that if you don't have a purpose or a reason to live, you're probably not going to want to be healthy. So we help you find that purpose first. And then we teach you all the protocols and the health and the habits. And I like to think about health as an ecology. So we teach like your ecology of health or your health ecology, where it's this systems view of health. And there's some other frameworks that I can kind of describe as well. But pretty much over here, the mission would be to maximize your holistic health, increase health span, and minimize lifetime healthcare costs. And so if I were to break those down, like holistic health is that view of health I talked about before. It's not only your health, but it's your health of your family, your friends. It's a very holistic view of health there. The health span is like healthy years lived with vitality. So it's very important that you're not just living to 80 years old or 100, but you like your last year is really we want you to be living like very happily and with energy and vitality to your last day. So it's a big one. And then the third one that health is minimizing your lifetime cost of healthcare. And this is bringing the health economics background where I've realized, it's the big meta problem in health is, I guess, two big problems is like the bad outcomes of health and the very high cost of healthcare, and they interplay. And so Brian Johnson, shout out to Brian, and the whole longevity kind of movement there, spends about $2 million USD on his health every year. Okay, and he is one of probably the most healthiest people on earth right now. His slow is aging. It's amazing kind of science behind it, but it's not sustainable for everyone, obviously, to spend $2 million in their health. What he's done is outsource the blueprint for others to follow, which is awesome, free, and that's amazing. But pretty much I realized is that we need to have very low cost interventions for health. We can't give everyone a cardiac bypass surgery. We can't give everyone 7 prescriptions of X, Y, Z. We need to get people to be able to be healthy with a lower cost of healthcare, because our economy is going to kind of like implode on itself. And the number one thing that's driving that is actually healthcare costs. Yeah, and so I got to do some amazing modeling when I was working in consulting, where we would model out our percentage of healthcare costs as a percentage of GDP in the West, especially in the US and Australia, etc., and UK. And the numbers are not good. By like 2050 and 2060, like the amount of money we're spending on healthcare, and by the way, this is like reactive spending. This is like tertiary healthcare spending, people who like have diabetes and have heart disease and all these things. It's not like preventative at all. Less than 1% of our healthcare spending is preventative care. And even then, I don't even think that 1% is spent well. That is my opinion, but happy to validate that if you want. So that's why healthcare costs is huge. And I'm very focused on that. And so we want to actually help people monitor the healthcare costs and see if they can achieve great outcomes at low costs. It's very important as well with developing a business model out of this prevention. Number 3 is all about nature. Because how can us as humans, and how can you, when you come to our retreats, live in harmony with nature, ecologically? And what I mean by that is humans have always done, like, try to develop themselves at the cost of nature. So we pull stuff out of the ground, we do X, we do Y, and we're kind of like killing other animals to make ourselves better, right? Or other plants and these things. Oil, 250 million-year-old plants, extract oil. I don't think it's bad we've done that, by the way, and I'm not saying any of that's bad. And I think we had to do that to be where we are today. We're kind of reaching a state and a turning point in civilization where we can now source our energy renewably. We can be able to grow our food more efficiently and productively in regenerative settings. And we can be able to be healthy, not at the cost of nature anymore.
Yeah.
And this is teaching us that we have a new kind of like belief in our chapter of humans,
Yeah.
that we can like live and progress, not at the cost of the planet, but actually in harmony with the planet. So the planet gets healthier as we get healthier. And that kind of relates back to the thing I was talking about before, where we are nature itself. So if nature is unhealthy, we're unhealthy.
Yeah.
And if nature is healthy, we're healthy. So we are really just reflections of each other. And we're just one species in this beautiful animation. So it's kind of like a humbling one as well. Yeah, from ego to like eco. Yeah.
I love that. And how long do these retreats last?
Yeah, so the retreats last as long as my partner Joe will allow. that's a bit of a meme. So, I love you, Joe. Pretty much, yeah, the retreats we've done 4 in the last year, but they've been quite spontaneous. Yeah, so the retreats have just been like a one-night retreat, or we did a week-long retreat pretty much up in Byron Bay at our beautiful friend Dan's farm, Dragon Farm.
Wow.
That was like kind of like a co-living retreat with like 8 of us or so. So the retreats have been super variable.
Yeah.
And the reason why we've done them that way is because I just wanted to test different modalities of retreats. Yeah. But if I were to say like the first Ikigai Health and Nature retreat, once we get our program super like on point, it will be a 3-night retreat. And that's because I believe 3 nights is the minimum amount of time that you can really get deep with a group of people. 1 night, you're only just adjusting, this sort of thing. So I'd say 3 nights is a good amount. And so that's what we tend to prioritize. We can do 7-day ones as well. Honestly, I can see like a whole month type of retreat. Like, there's many different things you can do with it, but I'd say 3 nights is like a good amount to take.
And when do you think that there will be the first retreat open to the general public?
Yeah, interesting. To be honest, I'd say actually not for a while. That's because I really want to do like a very slow, kind of like Taoist way of growing the. And this is actually a charitable entity, by the way. Definitely will build a business model that will be for profit later, and then the for profit entity can fund the charity. But right now, the reason why it's charitable is because I'm just running them pretty much with friends and friends of friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even family too. Like, my mum came to the retreat back in Perth, for example. And that's because retreats are very hard to run. Actually, there's a lot of work in it, and so they're mostly like supply side constrained. So there's always going to be demand for the material, but just developing the actual like program and system is the most important thing right now. And I want to grow organically, where like it's through like a referral. So because I want the retreats to actually be community building. That's a really key part of it. You don't just come to one of our retreats and we just say bye bye. You're actually in a lifelong community where you can come back to other retreats, and you can then be equipped with like an Ikigai grant to run your own retreat. We actually want to empower you to be able to run your own experiences and these sort of things, because I really believe in the medium of a retreat. It's pretty much intentional time, like X amount of days, and we need more intentional time to just kind of take our step back from our busy, crazy lives, just really like think, reflect, and do that deep like self-actualization work that we all need to do, that we just have put it on pause because the hedonic treadmill has hit us. So yeah, so again, probably not for the like general public for a while. I'm not too sure when that will be. If anyone wants to help fund as well more retreats, gladly would accept, because right now the bank account is not doing the best. But let's just say that want to grow organically through community and word of mouth and referrals at the moment. Yeah, and we'll see when we grow more.
So, where in the world will these retreats be? Do you have any areas specifically in mind?
Yeah, so the point of this is like it's like a global first kind of mindset. So like we've run three in Australia and one in Portugal.
Love that.
And Portugal, I think, would definitely be a big hub in the EU at least.
Yeah.
Australia is like our home, but to be honest, like the whole world is our home, right? So the vision would be to have retreats in an interconnected like network globally, where you could have one in the Philippines and in Bali and like the Bay Area and in outside of upstate New York. Like, I can imagine like many different beautiful locations, and they just really have to be in nature. Quite like it's a prerequisite, because I just believe and the evidence really points towards that nature itself is the biggest healer. Like you don't need to be prescribed anything; you can just be in nature and you'll heal automatically. In my mind, maybe with some like help here and there, but it's mostly yourself. And so globally, and if any other retreat centers want to like kind of be in our network as well, like, I'd love to have them on board too. So I see this as a cooperative kind of entity. I don't want to compete with other retreats in any way. I actually want to be a collaborative partnership. Yeah, it's kind of how I'm thinking about it, anyways.
Well, that sounds incredible, and I really want to visit a retreat at some point.
Run together.
Definitely want to go to a retreat. Now, we have been speaking for longer than expected, which is amazing, and we are going to have to wrap up. I've absolutely loved speaking to you today, and you shared some really interesting knowledge around specifically holistic health. But coming to the end of the podcast, you've mentioned lots of quotes throughout this. So the final question is, if you could give a quote or mantra to anybody listening to this podcast right now, what would that be?
Yeah, I'll go for the mantra and then the quote. So I'll do two. I'll cheat a bit. For the mantra, I said this before in the podcast, but I'll say it again. It's so meaningful. So it's just to be present and seek adventure. Think about be present as at the yin and seek adventure as the yang. And I do believe you can put almost all issues into not being present or not like seeking adventure, like an authentic adventure, kind of like Lord of the Rings, but where you're like on your fellowship of the ring or whatever, like your choose to be. And then the quote, good friend Max, shout out to Max, he's a lovely guy, sent an email out with this quote, and I read it. I've read it many times. To me, it's really beautiful. It's an African proverb. And the African proverb is, if you want to go fast, like go alone, kind of like the startup hustle, like just do it yourself.
Yeah.
But if you want to go far, like go together. And for me, like I think about that in many different lenses, but like even your life, like if you want your life to just go over in a balloon and you to just like do your own goals or whatever, sure, go ahead, like go alone. And that's needed sometimes, is that alone time, the solitude as well, right? But when you really want to like go far in anything, in your own longevity, in your own like business, with your family, like, it has to be a together thing, because we are not created in isolation. Yeah, and together is not just with other humans, but they're like nature at large. So I really think going together and like group therapy and like play therapy and natural therapy, like these things are are making a massive comeback, and I'm very bullish on them because they also reduce the cost of healthcare and they increase outcomes. So yeah, it's a win-win in my mind.
I think that links quite nice to this podcast, because without you here today, we wouldn't have created this amazing podcast episode. We've done that together. So I definitely agree with that. But thank you so much, Reynolds, for being here. I have loved speaking to you. I hope you've enjoyed being on the podcast.
Best one yet.
First one.
Best podcast of all time. Emily's amazing.
It's also his first podcast.
Yeah, we love it.
But thank you, Reynolds, and I do hope that I can go on one of your retreats at some point and share that with my listeners as well.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, well, we can co-create one. That's another big thing. We all kind of contribute and proceed.
Amazing. Well, thank you everyone for listening. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next week for the next episode.
Amazing. Peace.
Amazing.